Okay, before we get started, please make sure you have gone and read the section of the reading log titled Homework Week 3. I was going to give this to you as a as a homework when we were in, but I think I would rather teach it to you. There is homework for it, but I think I'm going to teach it to you as well. So yeah, please make sure you read the reading log before we get started, and then come back and let's go through the lesson. Okay, so I hope you're all good. So welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson is on Christian pilgrimage. And we're going to look around some of the understandings, the beliefs, the ideas around a pilgrimage. And I mean, don't forget, the series we're looking at is practices. So a Christian pilgrimage is a key practice that some Christians undergo and perform. There is some interesting stuff that might come up around this in terms of how people do pilgrimages and what it means and how it's significant for different types of believers. But to get started, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to answer the following questions as a Connect activity. Why do we celebrate certain dates and places? These could be birthdays or I don't know, Buckingham Palace. Why do we think that's important? Why do we celebrate these places and these specific dates? What value and worth does celebrating these either places or celebrating specific dates, what value and what worth does that bring to an individual? So use 2 or 3 examples to sort of elicit your answer. And how and why do places have the same worth or value as people? And that's quite an interesting question, because sometimes you find that a place can be as significant as a person. And when you say that in conversation, you would never ever think that, you know, somebody could say a place is as important as a person. Nevertheless, we do find throughout history that places are of significance, sometimes even more so than people, which is an interesting idea. And then the stretch questions there. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take a couple of minutes. If you normally do stretch, please go straight to stretch. Have a look at the first 3 questions. You don't need to sort of respond to it, but go straight to stretch. If you don't normally go straight to stretch, please do the connect, and you can do the stretch if you want to push yourself a little bit further. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video now. Okay, brilliant. If you're back, it means you paused the video and you've responded to those questions. I won't go through it with you. I will look at it when you've written it down and handed it back to me. Then I'll mark it and send it back to you like I've been doing. So, okay, let's move on. So first, I just wanted to show you your homework really quickly. I want you to go and research 2 Christian celebrations and specific Christian celebrations. I want you to look at Christmas and I want you to look at Easter. And what I just want you to research is about these 2 celebrations in these 2 festivals. Now, I want around 750 words to 1,000 words for each individual. You can do more than that, but please don't do less than that. I've put some questions in the bullet points there over here for you to sort of use to guide you. So use those questions there to guide what you're going to say or guide the research you're going to do and what you find out. Now remember, because this is practices, you always have to focus on the impact. So when you're responding or doing your research, look for how specific practices, specific ideas, specific things religious people do, Christians do. Look at the impact it does have. Look at the impact it's meant to have. Look at the impact people hope it may have. Please, whatever you do, do not plagiarize from the internet. I'm finding a lot of times people are, you guys are copy and pasting, and you know, you say things like, oh, but I've just changed some of the words. No, I need it all in your words. So I need you to read the research or read the knowledge and put it in your own understanding. Please do not copy and paste from the internet. Because when I ask you a question, a specific question like, what does this mean? And you can't tell me, it means you haven't taken in that information. So please, please, please do not plagiarize. Okay, so let's just start with these pictures then. Have a look at all these different pictures, and what do they have in common? Take about 40 seconds, pause the video now. Okay, great. So, in some of these pictures, you can see people carrying crosses, people walking. You can see specific buildings, and people tend to sort of, in these pictures, they tend to be in groups, or they are in groups. So these are some of the common features. We've got in the top left-hand corner there, here, we've got people reflecting, sitting there with candles, most of them wearing white. There looks like there's a picture of an icon here, just over here. And people are sitting, reflecting on something. And we have images here on the second one of people carrying crosses, and they're doing this together in sort of a joint effort. This one's interesting here. We have a man that's walking by himself. He looks like he's got a backpack on, like he's going camping or something, but he's walking by himself. We've got a picture here of a building on the right hand side at the top, with a picture of what looks like Mary and Jesus, but a building there on the top, so there's some significance about this building. And we've got a group of teenagers on the bottom left hand side here, all grouped together. We've got pictures of the Holy City in the two bottom pictures. One's of Jerusalem. And then on the bottom right again, we've got this image again of people surrounding or around this building that seems to sort of have no walls, but there's just sort of one wall left to it. And so all these images are representative of different ways Christians perform pilgrimages and where they might perform these pilgrimages. Now, to clarify and make clear, a pilgrimage is a journey to a sacred place as an act of religious devotion. I want you to write that word down, please. It's a journey made to a sacred place as an act of religious devotion. Now, that's quite important there. To help understand that word devotion. The word devotion means to be committed to something, to be utterly committed to something, to give oneself away to a thing. So people could be devoted to music, they could be devoted to their partner, their children, but devotion means the utterly giving away of oneself for a cause or a thing other than themselves. Funnily enough, sometimes people can be utterly devoted to themselves, but I don't know, that's not how we would use that word devotion. We would tend to use the word devotion when we're talking about somebody giving themselves away to something else, to a noble cause. So again, I just want you to think about the idea of pilgrimage, and again, thinking about what you've read in your reading logs. What can you tell me about pilgrimages using these three words: sacred, soul, and humility? I want you to write a response in your book. I'm going to give you a couple of, literally a minute or two. Write a response in your book, also on your Word document or Excel, and obviously I'll read it when you get it back to me. So just take literally 2 minutes. What can you tell me about pilgrimages using those words? Pause the video now. Okay, great. If you've done that, let's move on. All right, I would like you to do an exam question. And I was thinking about this. I just don't want us to do exam questions at the end, because I don't think that's a healthy habit. I want it to be something that sort of you constantly come across. So here is the exam question I have for you. Prayer is the most important Christian practice. Prayer is the most important Christian practice. This is a 15-mark question from the OCR exam questions. And again, we're going to use obviously that criteria and that structure. So analyze and evaluate the importance points of view, referring to common and divergent views within Christianity, refer to sources of wisdom and authority. You always see that, because whenever you get the 15-mark questions, it will always say that, because that's what they want you to do. Now, thinking about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, please use the writing guidance I created for you. You've got that in an email, and you've got it at the front of your reading logs. Please use the 15-mark one to help you structure your response. Your response is going to have to be more developed than that structure. That structure is just there to support a guide for you, to be there to help you structure C, know how to write it. But you will have to use your knowledge to inform your response. Things I want you to consider when you're writing: have you explained each point fully and coherently? Is it in order? Have you provided evidence and examples in the paragraphs? Every single paragraph you're writing, are you providing evidence for the points you make, or are you making points and just moving on? Are you making just one point? You know, that's a really important question. Is one point enough to convey the response you're trying to give? Do you need to give more than 1 point? Is your conclusion justified? Have you just made a conclusion because you've just tried to answer the question? Or is there sense and coherence and understanding and thoughtfulness behind the conclusion or behind your judgment that you've made? So think about the different Christian traditions. You know, when you're talking about Christian practice, you might refer to baptism or Eucharist as a practice. You might refer to that. Don't forget to use the words transubstantiation, consubstantiation. Instead of communion, you might want to say Eucharist. Look for areas where you've just, I don't know, you've just waffled. You haven't really said anything meaningful, anything specific. You've just said stuff. Take that out because it's not going to be helpful. Consider again Christian different denominations. And is your line of argument clear and logical? You know, does your line of argument make sense? Is it coherent? Is what you've said really, really clear and easy for someone to understand? That's a really, really, really important point that you've really got to think through, and that you've really got to sort of you've really got to get your line of argument has to be really, really clear. So that's what you're going to be doing. What I have done here is I have sort of created a little framework for you to self-assess before you send your work to me. So based on the exam criteria, the OCR framework, you know, if your response fits around this area here, okay, then you're probably going to get 3 to 5 marks. If it fits around this area here, in the middle, okay, probably going to get 5 to 9, and obviously 10 to 15 on the last end. It is really, really important that once you've written your response, that you come back and you look at these, okay? Have a look at these and see what they are, see if your response is in line, or which one it's more in line with. And this is where you have to be honest with yourself. You know, you're gonna have to be really critical and say to yourself, actually, have I done this? And I've written these in a really simplistic way for you guys to understand, based on the more complicated way that it says, you know, in the exam framework. So I put it in a way that's quite easy for you to understand, for you to self-assess. I want you to use this every single time you write an exam question. Every single time you write a 15 mark or even a 6 mark, I just want you to come back and ask yourself, actually, have I done this? Have I showed strong understanding? Have I answered the question appropriately? Have I used wisdom and quotes and religious references and developed the explanation? Or have I just put it there and left it there and moved on to the next point? Because if you've done that, then you won't be able to sit in this 10 to 15 band. So use this to help you structure your response. Okay, I'm going to go back one. What I want you to do is, here's the question. Prayer is the most important practice in Christian worship. I'd like you to take about 15 to 20 minutes. Do not take more than 20 minutes because you're way out over time. But you can start off by taking sort of 10 minutes, write a little marker where you are in 10 minutes, then write another marker where you are in 15 minutes, and write a marker when you're in 20 minutes. At 20 minutes, if you haven't finished, you shouldn't be writing anymore because you've just run out of time. Now mark it just so I know where you've got to, so I can help you develop your writing and develop your skill when I give you feedback. Okay, so take time, write it, and then come back. Pause the video now. Okay, so if you've written your response, that's excellent. What I just want you to do now is check it. Check it against the criteria that's on the screen and see how well you have done in your own eyes. You know, measure yourself up. you need to start to recognize what a strong answer you're writing looks like and what a weak answer you're writing looks like before I give you feedback. Okay, let's move on. So, let's get back to the idea of pilgrimage then. So, a pilgrimage is an essential part of life and living. Christians see life itself as a journey coming from God and returning to God. In other world religions, pilgrimages are also quite important. It's a way for people to connect with God. It's a way for people to focus with God. It's an action. It's symbolic for people. Going to a destination that's far away might not always be an easy thing, and we're going to look later on. This pilgrimages in the olden days took time. They took sometimes years to travel from England to Jerusalem. It took years, and they were dangerous journeys, and people would die, and people would get sick. It wasn't just jumping on a plane, flying there, spending a few days there and coming back. No, it was way more arduous than that. And it showed real dedication to the religion, to their faith, because of the amount of time and energy and effort and money and grit it took. It wasn't an easy thing. But it is an interesting thing because it's symbolic, because it represents the journey of a Christian's life from earth to heaven. And the earth part represents their normal day-to-day life. The heaven part represents where this religious significant thing or religious significant place or religious significant person has come from or has lived in. And so it's that sort of transition from your earthly day-to-day life to this new heavenly spiritual place where you recharge and draw energy and focus on God. Pilgrims are people who go on these journeys. So the journeys are called pilgrimages, and the people that go on the journey are called pilgrims. They took these journeys to holy places because it was important for their faith. It was important for them personally to see how dedicated they were to their faith, to go and see where the origin of different aspects of their faith were. And some believed, if they had committed really, really grave sins, then to go to this place, this really sacred place, to show God how sorry you are, was a true sign of repentance, was a true sign of penance, was a true sign of, how sorry you were for the thing you've done and how committed and dedicated you were to changing your life and get it right. And it's interesting because in different locations, people would go to different places for different things. So if people needed guidance, they might go to Jerusalem. If people needed forgiveness, they might go to Walsingham. If they needed a miracle, they might go to TA's. It all just depends. You would go to different places. And so it's important to understand the significance and the importance of a pilgrimage, what it stands for, what it represents, and how it impacted those people. So why do they go on pilgrimages? Well, by definition, a pilgrimage is a journey, right? So the whole idea is, you're going on a journey to connect with God, but it's really important to understand that there is moral and spiritual significance. A lot of times people want to connect with God, and some people feel that they can connect better with God in a place that's more associated with God. Hence people go to church on a Sunday, or mosque or masjid on a Friday, or prayers, or temple on the Sabbath. A place with spiritual significance where God is the focus. Well, people want to go there because they feel, they can focus more on God. It's much easier to focus on God in those places than in, your workplace or sometimes even your home. If you are Hindu, you can worship in your home. That's great. But if you don't have a shrine set up, it would be really difficult to worship the deity you believe in. So actually, the place has significance. And it has spiritual significance, which means it's connected to the religion in some way, form, shape or size. It could be a shrine, it could be a building, it could be a mountain. But there are lots and lots of places in Christianity that have spiritual significance and importance to the specific geolocation, to the actual place. And people want to go there for a refreshing, awakening. They want to see miracles performed because people said miracles have happened there before, so they want to go and see it for themselves. In a sense, there is something about the God or the deity residing or being around or being familiar with this place. This is the ultimate reason why people travel to go on a pilgrimage, because of that association with God, that association with the deity, that association with the being, with the religion as a whole, not just one aspect, but significant aspects, but it might play out itself in one sort of column way. You might go there for example, you might go there for a miracle, but it's not just a miracle you're going to receive when you go in that place. You will receive some sort of spiritual understanding or awakening or development or growth. It's not just a one thing you go there for. You gain a whole range of things when you go to a religious site, especially on a pilgrimage, just because of the importance it has attached to the religion. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to watch this video. And actually what I'd like you to do is, as you watch this video, please take notes on why Christians go on pilgrimages. Take notes on things you hear about the spiritual significance or the moral significance or the importance of that place. Look out for those things, write them down, take them in your notes. I'd like you to pause the video now. Okay, so hopefully some of the things you've got from that video were that the idea is to grow closer to God. Yes, you can grow closer to God in your house, but there's something more significant when you go to a place that's dedicated to God. It's to strengthen faith. It's a really, really key one. People go to religious places to strengthen their faith. Therefore, people go to religious pilgrimages to strengthen their faith even more. Sometimes people go to religious places to express their sorrow for sins and ask to be forgiven. Yes, you can be forgiven at home. Yes, you can be forgiven in your church. But people want to go to the religious place because there's this connection that they feel they will have more, and they might feel a stronger sense of repentance because they are on sacred ground in a sense, and so people go there to be forgiven. A lot of times people go to a pilgrimage because they want to leave their stressful day-to-day life and be refreshed. Often in the Gospels you hear that after Jesus had done a miracle, he would retreat from the people. And he would go and pray by himself. Now, the purpose of this was to be refreshed and renewed. And actually, that's what a pilgrimage does for a lot of religious people. It is, in a sense, a retreat from the norm, from the things you're surrounded by constantly, to go and be refreshed and to go and be renewed. People go on pilgrimages to reflect on their lives. You might have a family member that's passed away. You might be at a crucial junction in your life. You might be going through a really, really tough time, and you just want to be around something different and somewhere different. And so a pilgrimage might be a great place to go to do that, because it allows you to reflect on your life, but do that through reflecting on God, and do that in a place that's associated with God. It'll allow you to pray. People go on pilgrimages to pray. People go on pilgrimages to seek healing and seek cure for diseases and illnesses. People go on pilgrimages to help other pilgrims who can't fulfill the duties of the pilgrim themselves because they're ill or disabled or they just can't make it. And these places are often associated with Jesus or Mary or holy religious people. And these are some of the purposes and the aims. And also, pilgrims go on these journeys and these places to connect with other religious believers. Not just religious believers from their small communities, but religious believers from all around the world. And in a sense builds this idea of brotherhood or sisterhood or familyhood, that you see thousands of other people from all areas of the whole world coming together, sort of focus on this one place and this one thing, and you all do it together. There's quite a lot of significance in that. And so here are two clips I would like you to watch, and we are going to look at these a bit more in detail. In your reading logs, there is information regarding these two places. These are the two places I would like you to sort of keep at the forefront of your mind. The first one is Walsingham, and the second one is TA's. And I just want you to go and watch these videos and learn about these places. Okay, learn about these places. What happens at Walsingham? What happens at TA's? What is the religious significance of these places? Why is Walsingham significant? Why is TA's significant? Take a couple of minutes, watch the videos really carefully, take notes, focusing on what happens in these places and what the religious significance are. Pause the video now. Okay, you're back. So, Walsingham, this is not from the video, the information I'm about to give to you, so it's going to be different from the video. There will be aspects of what I'm going to share with you here that's not in the video. But Walsingham, 1061, in the reign of Edward the Confessor, the widow of the lord of the manor, Walsingham Parva, called Richeldis, had a vision of Virgin Mary. Now, in this vision, Richeldis, Mary appeared to her, and sort of took her to Nazareth, to the place where Angel Gabriel had appeared. And she was told to take notes of the measurements of this house and build a copy of this house in Walsingham. And you know, the myth and the story is that, you know, she saw this vision 3 times. So she instructed carpenters to build the house, and during the night there was heavy sort of dew. Now dew tends to be comes from, I should say, a low cloud, and so, you know, when you wake up in the morning sometimes and you see the wetness on the windscreen of the car, that's because of dew. And so that had happened one night, but it happened, you know, quite heavily. So it was really, really wet. But in one of the meadows or the fields, there was 2 spaces, or I don't know how big they were, but they were equally sized. But they had remained dry. For some reason, the dew had not touched these places. So this Richeldis took this as a sign that this was the land she was supposed to build this holy house on. Anyway, the workmen tried to build the house, but they couldn't do it. And it says that they gave up in despair and spoke to Richeldis and said to her, "Look, we can't do it." Now, she is said to have gone and prayed all night, and we don't know what she was praying about. But we can imagine it's something along the lines of, "Look, Mary, you've told me to do this thing. I've tried to do it. It's not worked. I need your help." And so she's gone sort of and asked for help and asked for support from God, or whoever she was praying to. Now, what was interesting is it said that the next morning a miracle was discovered. The building, which was a chapel, was found fully completed and standing on the other dry spot. It was concluded that Our Lady had removed the holy house to the place where she herself had chosen. So in a sense, what's being said here is that, you know, she prayed, and then, you know, the next morning there was a building there. Now, who had built the building? How had they constructed it in one night? Well, no one is said to know. And so people classed it as a miracle, something supernatural that had occurred. And that's what a miracle tends to be. It's a supernatural event that couldn't possibly happen within the physical parameters, but happens anyway. So, you know, people see this building and it's been built the next day. And they classed it as a miracle. This is the significance of Walsingham. It's why people believed it was... or this is why people believed it was a holy place, and one of the reasons it became a pilgrimage. Since this happened, Walsingham has been one of the most holiest places to visit in England. And people that go to this village and people that go to this site, they ask Mary to pray to Jesus on their behalf. Now it's interesting because the connection that the lady of the manor which held this, because of the connection she had with Mary, and when people go to this site, they petition Mary on their behalf, and they ask Mary to sort of ask Jesus for help on their behalf. And so back in the Middle Ages, it was sort of a duty for every English man who was a Christian to at some point visit Walsingham. Little is known about the early pilgrims. They would go to Walsingham to pray, and lots of people would come back saying their prayers had been answered. Lots of people would go saying their illnesses had been healed because they drank water from the wells, and that's quite significant. News gradually spread out to Norfolk and reached Greenwich and London and the whole country, that this place, something special, something remarkable, something miraculous happens here. Now it's really interesting that we look at Walsingham, because the idea of praying to Mary is not something that Protestants would engage in. It tends to be something more Catholics or Anglicans might engage in more so. And so you might tend to find that the people who visit this site specifically as a pilgrimage might tend to be your Catholics and possibly your Anglican Christians or maybe even your Church of England. But you are least likely to find Protestants in this location praying to Mary, because it's not part of their practice. Now, just more about Walsingham. Lots of people go there each year. The particular emphasis is concerned with the incarnation of Jesus. Again, because this holy house that Richardus was told to build was where the angel had told Mary, this, you are going to receive God in flesh. It's almost the first place the incarnation was introduced to Mary. There's quite a lot of significance in that, because that's a turning point. Christians would say a turning point in history, where God becomes, where it is said that God is going to become man to come and save man. And so the Holy House is a reminder of Nazareth, of the house in which Jesus lived as a young man. People believe by visiting it and praying with it, they are identifying and connecting with where Jesus grew up. Again, it's about the significance it holds to the person. It's about the significance it has to do with the deity. And in this, in Walsingham, you've got Mary, you've got Jesus, you've got these two key individuals in Christianity who are the focus of the location, and they connect with these two individuals to connect with God. Okay, I'd like you to just do a stop and drop for 4 minutes. I'm going to ask you to pause the video, answer these questions in 4 sentences, please. Pause the video now. Okay, great. If you're back, here are our responses. Okay, so when we're talking about the Trinity, we're talking about the three persons of God. When we're talking about holiness, we're talking about holy other, out of this world, transcendent, beyond space and time, the physical world and human comprehension. When we're talking about creation, a really important phrase and word here is ex nihilo. This idea of out of nothing, really, really important. Please remember that. When you're looking at the response for question 4, it says prescribed, ordered, reflective and solemn. You tend to find that worship for or liturgy in Catholicism is prescribed, it's ordered, it's more reflective, there's a solemnness to it. For Protestants, it's more lively, energetic, there seems to be more overt zealousness, and it's a lot more dynamic. And again, you just think about, Question 5, it focuses on the greatness of God and His will, the Lord's Prayer. This prayer focuses on how great God is. It focuses on the will of God. It asks for providence, for God to provide for people both spiritually and physically. And this is one thing that's really interesting. It links and relates to God in a personal way. The first line of that prayer is not "my God," it's "our Father who art in heaven." There's a personal connection there where you refer to God as Father, and it's referring to Him as Father, not just a divine being. It's simple, it's personal, and it's powerful, and those are really, really key things about the Lord's Prayer that you need to take away. Okay, so we're just going to look at TAs a little bit. TAs is a really interesting location, and we're going to learn more about it. It's very different from Walsingham. The idea behind it is different. The story behind it is different. But it was set up by a man called Roger Louise. And he set up the community after cycling to Burgundy from Geneva. He was the son of a pastor, a Protestant pastor, the youngest of 9 children, and he was born in Switzerland. From an early age, he was quite conscious about the division between Protestant and Catholics, but he wanted to look beyond that division, He wanted to find a way to connect these two schisms, or these two areas of Christianity that had been schism, that had broken apart. He felt a call to the monastic life, and the monastic life refers to the life in a monastery, so the life of a monk. He was influenced by his grandmother's tales of helping refugees during the First World War, and this gave him a strong desire to reach out, help the poor, and help the oppressed. Now, I'm going to let you read this, ask you to read this, and then we'll go and just look at a bit more about what happens at TAs and what's significant about it. So literally just take about a minute, 2 minutes, and just read what's on the page. Pause the video to read it. Now. Okay. All right. So he's really reaching out to help people in this monastic life. It's about serving other people. In a letter before he died, he spoke of the need to love life on earth and at the same time long for beyond. So that is, live life to the fullest, but also look towards what comes after. His death was a tragic death. He died in 2005. He was stabbed by a woman 3 times in the throat during a prayer service. There were 2,500 people there, which sounds quite terrible. And then a Catholic monk was appointed his successor. Now, one of the things that we learned about the man who started this was this idea that he believed, Roger, he believed in this idea of bringing both Protestants and Catholics together. And in bringing them together, heal a long-lasting division that had occurred from the first schism, the Papal schism, the second schism, all the schisms put together. A schism means split. So from that first schism, and the most significant one, which is the Protestant and Catholic schism by Martin Luther, he wanted to bring people back together. And so in wanting to bring people together, TAs was born. Now there's a word here, and this word is ecumenical. Ecumenical. And it means representing a number of different churches and even a number of different denominations coming together. The TA's community is an ecumenical monastic order with a strong devotion to peace and justice through prayer and meditation. The community is made of both Roman Catholics and Protestant monks, all from around the world. So it's not just focused on Protestants and it's not just focused on Catholics, it's focused on both. It's one of the world's most important sites for Christian pilgrimages. And we can understand why just straight away in terms of what it aims to do and why it's there. Thousands of people go here every year. And the key thing about TAs is that when you go here, the focus is on prayer and silence, which is quite interesting. So lots of young people come here from all over the world, but people aren't coming here because necessarily the site itself is a religious site, but it's what happens at the site that makes it significant. You know, this is where people come to be quiet and listen. You know, one of the aims of reflection is that you're just able to be quiet and listen. And this is one of the key things that occurs at TAs, where people come to pray and people come to just listen. What is God saying to them? What is God saying in their heart? And if they can't hear him, they will pray and ask. And this idea that it's ecumenical means that it's not a Protestant thing or a Catholic thing. It's a Christian thing. Different denominations, different people coming together to be quiet and listen to what God's saying. Now, you have to remember that the people running TAs are monks, and they are committed to material and spiritual sharing. So they share their stuff, their physical stuff, but they share their spiritual connections as well with each other. They are also bound by vows of poverty, which means they will, they don't desire riches, chastity, which means they will not have sex and engage in relationships with the other sex, and obedience. They will listen to God. They dress as laymen, as holy men, but they wear white hooded robes in church. The community there looks after themselves. They look after themselves. They build their own facilities. They grow their own food, cook their own food. They look after themselves. They live, and this is interesting, the brothers live by their own work. They don't take donations and family legacies. Now, what that means is a lot of times when a rich or wealthy person passes away and they have lots of money left, they might give all of their wealth to the monks and say to the monks, take this money and go and do what you want. The monks don't accept these. They just work for their living. They just work with what they have, and if they don't have it, then they don't have it. But they welcome everybody. They ask people to join, and they welcome people to join and live this life with them, which obviously is really difficult. But again, it's back to that focus where we said, the focus of this is prayer and silence. It's about people just connecting with God. A lot of people come here to explore or rediscover their faith. It's not about church, it's not about Mary, it's not about Catholics, it's not about Protestants, it's not about Orthodox, it's not about any of those. It's just about what is God saying. How do we serve each other? How do we look after each other? How do we live in community? And it's really, really important when they're together that they spend a lot of time studying scriptures, studying the Bible, and reflecting. They might read a verse and meditate on that verse and ask themselves, well, what does that mean for us? What does it mean we have to do? What does it mean we should do? How do we help people once we've read this verse and taken it in? And it's interesting because one of the first things that the early Christians did when they established the church, when I say the church, I don't mean a building, I mean the community of believers. One of the first things they did was they all sold everything they had, and they came together to live in community. So in the books of Acts, I think it's around chapter 2 and 3, all the Christians that had now decided to follow God sold everything they had. They sold their money, their houses, they sold all of it. And they all came together to this place, wherever it was, to live together as a community with not living extravagant lifestyles, not living wealthy lifestyles, but to live a life of humility and a life of sharing, where they share with each other, they grow with each other, they live with each other, they love each other. Well, that's what TA sounds a lot like. They've taken a lot of that early Christian zeal and brought it into the modern world, which is really, really challenging because there are huge distractions. You know, money is a distraction. Clothes, wealth, holidays, these things are all distractions. But if you're a monk at TAs, you will give all that away to just focus on God, study the scriptures, live in silence, connect with other believers, share things physically that you have, share things spiritually that you have, and grow in your connection with God. Now, here are some of the routines they have, just to show you, sort of help you understand the way these monks live. They pray every day, and they pray and work. If you're a pilgrim and you come to TAs as a pilgrim, you are expected to join in. You're expected to get stuck in, not just stand there and watch, but just get stuck in. And so you would do things like pray, make breakfast, join a Bible study, have discussions with people, pray again, have an afternoon Bible study, have more discussions, eat, pray again. And this is the life they live. It's a life of prayer, a life of work, and a life of reflection. And when you go to TAs, you just engage in that over and over and over and over and over again. And what that should do is it should stop you focusing on yourself. It will allow you to focus on other people. It will allow you to focus on God. But the one thing and the one person you probably won't be focusing on would be yourself. And so there's this idea, it's to take away you from the whole thing and say, well, how can I serve other people? How can I help other people? How can I love other people? Because according to Jesus and his teachings, the two greatest commandments are to love God with all your heart, and then to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So there's this essence where, yes, we love God and we serve people. And those two things are really, really crucial at TAs. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just think for a moment about all the things I've talked about, things I've spoken about, and I would like you to write a short paragraph regarding Walsingham and TAs. I want you to write short paragraphs and tell me, how do you think a teenager, or which one do you think a teenager would prefer to go to? Do you think they'll prefer to go to Walsingham or TAs, and why? Where do you think a new Christian would like to go to? TAs, Walsingham, why? Maybe a mature Christian, someone who's been in the faith for a long, long time. Where do you think a Protestant would prefer to go? A Methodist, a Catholic would prefer to go, and why? I just want really, really short responses focusing on the person, what they probably believe and why they're going there, and the ideologies they have. So use examples to show good understanding and then bring real understanding to your response. Think of the person, think of why they would want to go there, and what they would want to engage with while they're there. Think about the impact it would have on them and how it would affect them. I want you to take about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Take about 15 minutes to do this. Spend about 2 to 3 minutes on each one, not much more than that. But don't waffle, just think about really, really key, concise reasons and things, why they want to go there. Be specific about which person you're talking about, which denomination you're referring to, and what the ideologies of that person, that denomination is, and how it would affect their decision on where they're going. Use examples as well to show your understanding. Take 15 minutes, go. Okay, so you've done that. I just wanted to show you some other places that you could talk about. When you get an exam question regarding pilgrimage or Christian practice, some of the other places people go are here. There's a place called Lourdes, so I'd like you to watch this video, and I would like you to respond to the questions there. Again, Lourdes is quite an important place that people go. It's linked again with Mary, and it's linked again with miracles. So think about, again, Lourdes, why people might want to go there and what the benefits of these are. I'd like you to take about maybe 5-10 minutes, respond to these questions. Pause the video now. I'd also like you to think about Jerusalem, you know, the holy city. And I just want you to watch this video, a short video, and answer one really simple question. What 3 reasons give 3 reasons why a Christian might go to Jerusalem specifically on a pilgrimage. Now remember, in Jerusalem is the holy city. It's always been one of the most, if not the most sacred land for both Jews, Christians and Muslims for thousands of years. So think about the reasons why they might want to go there. Pause the video now. Okay. All right. And then again, I just want us to think about Rome. Okay. Another place where Christians go on a pilgrimage. Now, I've been to Rome before, and it is really, really interesting. Now, you know, you would tend to think that possibly only Catholics might find value and meaning in going to Rome, but I'm not a Catholic, and I have been to Rome, and I found real significance and there was a real sense of something when I went there. So again, that might be interesting to think about. Actually, get this idea out of your mind that because it's Roman, it's you know, it's the origin of the Roman Catholic Church, or the seat of the Roman Catholic Church, that only Roman Catholics would find it valuable. Get that out of your head. Watch the video, listen to it. Why do you think Christians might go there? What impact do you think it would have? Even a non-religious person, why might they find value in going to a place like this, even though they're not religious? Why might, you know, would an atheist go here and find some sort of interest or significance or meaning in what happens here and what they see and what they come across? Really interesting. All right. Okay, so read about Rome, watch the video and learn about it. Pause the video now. Okay. And then what I'd like you to do is, here is an exam question that you're going to respond to. Now, sometimes I know that, you know, if I say to you, use the writing frame, you might be like, well, I don't know, that doesn't really make sense. Okay, I get that, I understand that. So what I'd like you to do is, if you get stuck with sort of structuring and writing the exam questions that I'm giving you, what I want you to do is I just want you to create a plan. I just want you to take a couple of minutes before you write the actual essays and write a plan of what you are going to argue, what you're going to say, what reasons you're going to give to support or disagree with the statement, which denominations you're going to refer to, how developed your responses are going to be, what evidence are you going to use, what argument are you going to propose? Not your view, that's not what I've asked for. I've not asked for your view, so my argument doesn't mean my view. Okay, so it's really important for you to understand here, where it says my argument here, okay, that does not mean your personal view. That just means the argument you are going to propose. So when it says, you know, where I say my argument, please do not give me your views, give me the argument you are going to propose. And then the conclusion, this is where you're going to be making judgments. You're going to be reaching a conclusion. It's going to be justified. And so use this plan to help you structure what it is you want to say and what it is you're going to say. Use that plan to help you structure it if you get stuck. Because it's a 15-mark question. You have to remember the coherency, the knowledge, the structure, the understanding is what's going to get you marks. You know, writing 3 lines or 5 lines is not going to get you 15 marks. So plan your question, plan your response, plan what you're going to argue, plan what you're going to say, plan what you're going to evaluate and how you're going to evaluate it, and then use that plan to write your 15 mark. And when you use that plan to write your 15 mark, here is the writing frame, and you've got this from me already. I want you to use that writing frame there. Okay, use this writing frame here, and that's what you want to use to guide your writing. Okay, you've got sentence starters there, you've got directions there, context is needed, depth is needed, understanding is needed, really good explanations are needed. So use that to help you structure what you're going to say and how you are going to say it. okay? And you've got a 3-mark question there and the 15-mark question I just showed you before. The 3-mark, you don't need a plan for that. You just need to respond to it. And for the 3-mark, you would use, obviously, here. You would use this range here. For the 15-mark, you would use the one below. All right, so go for it. Please make sure you send me the questions when they're done, and I will give you feedback as I always do. Hope you found the lesson useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. If you have any questions for even other students or any comments you want to make for people to sort of help them understand it, leave comments in the box underneath this video, just so that you can all talk to each other and feedback to each other regarding the response. I hope you found the lesson useful. Thank you very much, guys. And